The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-3 and lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers with a score of 20-18 in Week 6. This was especially concerning for Tampa, not just because they lost to the Steelers, but because they lost to the Steelers with countless players out. Their starting quarterback was injured midway through the game, but even before that happened, they were without the 2021 Defensive Player of the Year in TJ Watt, former All-Pro Minkah Fitzpatrick, three corners in Cam Sutton, Ahkello Witherspoon, and Levi Wallace, and second-year tight end Pat Freiermuth. This was a game Tampa should have ran it up and flew home on Sunday night with a win and have moved on to their Week 7 opponent, which is the division rival Carolina Panthers. But at the moment, the rest of the season outlook is very concerning for the Buccaneers. Their losses are to, of course, Pittsburgh on Sunday, Green Bay in Week 3, and Kansas City back in Week 4. This team is nowhere close to the team that won the Super Bowl a few years ago, and in a lot of ways, this is concerning. And in today's video, we are going to break down what's wrong with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because there is a lot to dive into, and without further ado, let's begin. One of the biggest reasons why Tampa won the Super Bowl 2 years ago was because of how dominant their offensive line was. Health also played a big factor into this, but their offensive line was great. On Super Bowl Sunday against the Chiefs, they had one of the biggest steals in the 2020 draft in tackle Tristan Wirfs, who in his first 2 years was a Super Bowl champion, a Pro Bowler, and a first-team All-Pro. They also had guard Ali Marpet, who retired this offseason, and center Ryan Jensen, who suffered a season-ending knee injury before his 2022 season could even begin. Credit the Bucs for making the trade this offseason to acquire guard Shaq Mason from the Patriots in what was an absolute steal for Tampa, as they gave up just a 5th-round pick. But the offense has not been the same this year, and it is due in large part to that said offensive line. They're not the sole reason, to be clear, but starting Luke Goedeke and Robert Hainsley at guard and center has made a massive difference, and it shows. The Bucs as a team averaged 2.9 yards per carry in Week 6, and whether you're Tom Brady or whoever, not having a running game in your back pocket will severely limit what you can do offensively. And the Bucs' play calling at times this year has been very questionable as well. Tom has shown moments where he is 45 years old, but the factors around him have not been favorable at times. Most notably in the Green Bay game when Russell Gage was targeted 13 times, Cameron Brate was the second leading receiver, and Brashad Perriman was the third leading receiver. Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were both out, and Tampa put up just 12 points. They ran the ball 14 times for 34 yards, which comes out to just 2.4 yards per carry. The run game is nowhere close to where it has been in any of the 3 years Tom has been in Tampa, and it's not close to where it needs to be for them to get back to the promised land. The points simply haven't been there for Tampa either, and through 6 games, they've put up more than 21 points just once, which occurred in a losing effort to the Chiefs. And the offensive line not being great in the run game has translated to Tom's passing game as well. Tom is a bit different than the average quarterback, so Tom doesn't panic under pressure the way some young quarterbacks do. The interception numbers aren't there for Tom, and they won't be as his football IQ is extremely high. But under pressure out of 38 qualifiers, Tom ranks 35th in completion percentage out of 38 quarterbacks, meaning he throws the ball away a lot. There will be times when you're watching the Bucs and see Tom throw a ball near absolutely nobody, and that's because he is simply getting rid of the football before he takes a sack. In a lot of ways, that is smart, and I'm not criticizing him for doing that, but the point of the offensive line being a problem shows. Under pressure in 2022, Tom is just 14 of 38 for 139 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. It was particularly bad against the Steelers in Week 6, as he was just 1 of 7 under pressure for 28 yards. This was his worst game out of any of the first 6 in terms of throwing under pressure, and the Steelers had a tremendous game plan to go against the Bucs. They only blitzed Tom on 7 of 42 dropbacks and pretty much said, "We are going to let our guys up front," led by Alex Highsmith, who I do believe will make the Pro Bowl this year, and Cam Hayward, get after the quarterback, and we're going to trust our guys in the secondary. Not only that, but the Steelers' red zone defense was incredible. 4 times the Bucs drove the ball inside the Steelers' 15-yard line and twice inside the Steelers' 5-yard line, and they came away with just 1 touchdown. And on a day where they had 75 rushing yards on 26 attempts, these are the kinds of stats that ultimately come back and bite you in the ass. The last thing I will say regarding the Steelers game about Tampa, and credit to Pro Football Focus's Trevor Sikkema of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast for this, but Tampa had the ball yesterday with 1st and goal on Pittsburgh's 9, and offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich called a run. And when the team was averaging so little yards per carry, why would you call that in that situation? That made absolutely zero sense to call this in this scenario, and it resulted in a 2-yard loss. They had 2nd and 3rd and goal from the 11, and the ensuing passes were both incomplete. I don't understand in the most condensed area of the field why Byron would call a running play midway through the 3rd quarter, knowing full well the run game had not been working all day. It's minor decisions like this that add up in big ways in the long run. And credit the Steelers' defense for holding the Bucs to just 18 points and standing strong all day when they very easily could have gave in time and time again. There was a tweet recently that quoted head coach Todd Bowles that said, "Some guys are still living off the Super Bowl," and when a quote like this drops, it's a big deal. It's a very big deal in this scenario because it's coming from the head coach himself. I think it'd be something else if Tom said this, and given he is a 7-time Super Bowl champion, I think he would more or less use this as a motivational tool to basically say, guys, we're yesterday's news and we have no shot of winning a title this year if we don't get our heads out of our asses. But coming from the head coach means guys are disappointing Todd Bowles and not playing to the standard or the level he wants them to play. And for what it's worth, I don't think this applies to just players either. This past offseason, offensive coordinator Byron Leftwich was mentioned quite a bit in head coach discussions, but has been disappointing through 6 games. Tampa has the fewest rushing yards in the NFL of any team, and what's even more concerning aside from the obvious, there were 4 teams that had Week 6 byes, meaning 4 teams have 17% fewer chances at this point in time to run the ball, and Tampa still has the lowest total in the NFL. They have 2 rushing touchdowns in 6 games, which is also tied for last in the NFL, and have the 20th highest scoring offense out of 32 teams. This is where Byron has to be better. It's clear the run game hasn't been working aside from a Week 1 win against Dallas, and in the 5 games since, Leonard Fournette has 74 carries for just 216 rushing yards, which equates to 2.92 yards per carry. While Leonard has been good as a receiving back, the run game isn't there, period. And in a game in Week 6 where Fournette had 21 carries for 63 yards, again, another not good game running the football, Mike Evans had just 4 targets against a then 1-4 team with their top 3 corners out and their all-pro safety out. I don't know how many times Fournette has to carry the ball for a little yardage to realize this isn't working, and instead of trying to run behind a line with young starters in Luke Gadecki and Robert Hainsley, who are not great starters, we should try and get the ball to a player in Mike Evans who has had over 1,000 yards in every season of his career. And Chris Godwin, for that matter too, when healthy, is good for 6 to 7 catches per game. There is a lot of frustration right now in Tampa, and rightfully so. I do believe they will beat the Panthers in Week 7, which isn't a hot take, but this is a game I believe they need to not just win, but win comfortably. Their roster is far more talented than the Panthers, especially at the quarterback position, and there's no reason they don't win with a score along the lines of 27-10. But moving forward, Byron Leftwich in some ways has to be better. There's 2 great receivers on this team that could easily go for over 100 yards in any given game, and getting Leonard Fournette over 20 carries in a game where the secondary for the opposing team was very banged up was the priority. That can't happen if this team wants to get back to where they were 2 years ago. End of story. For as much as I've been on the offense in this video, the defense isn't exactly scot-free. In back-to-back home games against the Chiefs and Falcons, they've gave up over 150 yards rushing. The Falcons game was highlighted by one big play and a call by the refs that went in favor of the Bucs on a call that should have never been made. I don't think Marcus Mariota would have led a game-winning drive had he been given the chance, but what's crazy is he could have, and if he did, the Bucs would be 2-4. These aren't the Bucs of last year, and even in the Steelers game against Mitch Trubisky, at this point in the game, they allowed a 3rd and 11, a 3rd and 13, and 2 3rd and 15s to be converted in the second half. Not just one of those, but all of those. As mentioned, they play Carolina on the road in Week 7, but the following games are all at home, and they are against the Ravens on Thursday night, Rams, and Seahawks. None of those will be easy games to win, much less all three. But are they winnable for Tampa? Of course, but the Ravens run the ball extremely well, and I do think they will beat the Rams, but Seattle is a true wild card at this point in time. They have very good players on offense at the skill positions, and Geno Smith has been balling, and they can easily put up 21 plus points, which again is something Tampa has only done once this year. Do I think Tampa's 2022 season is done? Absolutely not, as I think they will end up winning the NFC South and win at least one playoff game, if not multiple. The good news for them is it's only Week 7, but they have to get a lot better before January rolls around. And that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would be very much appreciated. The link for the second channel, where we are currently playing out the 2022 Minnesota Vikings season, is in the description. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.